Greetings, listeners, and welcome to the Care Table podcast, dedicated to educating and supporting family caregivers of aging loved ones. I'm your host, Amy Huddleston. Through insightful interviews from both industry experts and family caregivers, we aim to provide valuable perspectives and resources. Let's see who we're learning from today. Welcome to today's episode. I'm really excited to get into this topic. Not a pleasant topic, but incredibly important. And we are really fortunate that we found Anne Farley to speak to. Anne is an expert in this field, in my humble opinion. She's been working in this industry for over 20 years. She's a licensed social worker, though, for 30 years. She has her master's degree in mental health counseling. She helped open up a beautiful, wonderful building that's in Columbus, Ohio area that is more for the moderate to advanced stages of dementia. So she's been doing that for about 10 years. So she's got an enormous amount of experience in this world. But what I also love is she's extremely passionate about caring for the caregiver. So we can talk about that in a little bit. And just before we started, I was saying to Anne, we could talk about probably 500 different subjects on dementia. There's so much we could cover. What we're going to focus on today, though, is when a family gets this diagnosis of dementia. It is a tough diagnosis. You might see it coming. You may not. You might be surprised. But it's this initial stage of, oh, my goodness, what are we going to do? And so that's where we're going to start. We're going to start at that stage and figure out how we can give some recommendations and resources and knowledge to families that might help them as they've just received this information. So let's start, Anne, by, you and I had talked about, let's just introduce everybody to really what dementia is and maybe even what it isn't, so everybody understands.
Right. Thanks, Amy. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Anne Farley, and as Amy said, I'm the Director of Community Relations and the Social Worker for the Ganshorn Suites, which is a standalone memory care community in Powell, Ohio, which is a suburb of Columbus. And I love that we're starting off talking about what is dementia, because I think that there is still a lot of misunderstanding about what dementia is and what dementia isn't. Is this normal aging, or do I need to be, concerned about something? Dementia, the first thing that I always say is, as our medical director, Dr. Douglas Shari, always says, is that dementia is like a last name, right? You don't just have dementia. Dementia is a group of syndromes or symptoms that are really marked by memory loss, thinking and, impairments and decision making that get worse over time. So it is a progressive disease. It's not normal to forget your child's name. It is not normal aging to, pull out of your condo to go to Kroger's where you've been going for 30 years and not being able to remember where you're going. That is not normal aging. Those are some of the things, the red flags that you might think, wow, I probably need to look further into this. So dementia, the best way to explain it, it's the umbrella of symptoms: the memory loss, the thinking, the executive functioning, the decision making, personality changes, language deficits. And then underneath the umbrella, you have all the different types of dementia. The most common is Alzheimer's disease, and that's, I think, why it's used interchangeably. But all dementia is not Alzheimer's disease, but it is the most prolific, it is the most common, and it's caused from a protein buildup in your brain. Then you have things like vascular dementia. Vascular dementia is a dementia that you can develop because you have issues with your cardiovascular system. You've had a history of strokes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart attacks, sleep apnea, things of that nature that cause the blood to not get all the way to your brain in the way that ours does. There's Lewy body dementia, which is just really probably one of the most challenging. That's kind of characterized by hallucinations and delusions and lots of ups and downs, and they do really well for a long time, and then they might have a plummet. You might have frontotemporal dementia, FTD. There was a show on the other night on Diane Sawyer. That's the disease that Bruce Willis has. That tends to hit people when they're young. Again, it affects your frontal lobe and your temporal lobe, which is language, emotion, lots of apathy, lots of indifference. You could say to your loved one that our dog is sick and we have to put them down and we're going to do that tomorrow. And they might say, can you get me an apple while you're up? There's just no apathy, no emotion, incredibly flat, and that's really difficult. Um, and let's see so yeah, that's, kind of the top. Those are kind of the top. So that's what dementia is and what it isn't. What I tell everyone, Amy, and if your listeners out there only get one thing from this program, which I hope they get a whole lot, is that if you have a concern, make an appointment with your physician, at least to start, and get that conversation going. And why is that critical? Because the medications that are out there that are available are most effective when the diagnosis is in the earlier stages.
And do you think too, I think that's great advice. Do you recommend go to your general practitioner or do you recommend go to a neurologist?
Well, initially it would be, I would love to say, sure, make an appointment with a neurologist. Here in Columbus, Ohio, I don't know how it is everywhere else with all your listeners. Sometimes it can take 3 to 6 months. Sometimes with other neurologists, it's a year. So I would get on every single neurologist list and cancellation list, and then at least start off with your primary care doctor. It might also have to come through a referral, through your primary care doc. But I would like to say that a lot of primary care physicians are getting more comfortable with the disease and understanding some of the red flags and the risk factors. Some of them even do some of the cognitive testing in their office. Those are things like the SAGE test, which Dr. Shari, our medical director, created. It stands for the self-administered gerontological exam, which is the one where, you try to draw a clock face. They'll give you other different type of spatial reasoning things. There might be things he might say, hey, Amy, I'm going to give you 4 words. Just remember, in a couple minutes, I'm going to ask you to recall them. Just as simple as that. Then there are all other kinds. And then there are other cognitive tests. There's the SLUMS, there's the BIMS, there's a mini mental. There are all these, healthcare has the acronyms. But I would start off with your primary care doc. And if you are lucky enough to be able to get into a neurologist quickly after that, that's even better.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we start there. That's good recommendation. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what else do we want to share with people that we feel like would be helpful if you do get that diagnosis?
Right.
Then I'm
Yeah.
there and I didn't do so well on my SAGE test.
Right. Right.
What
Yeah.
do I do next with my loved one?
So, I think what you need to get is, like I said, is really a definitive diagnosis. And, everyone's like, well, what does that mean? Well, it means that everything else has been ruled out, right? So the
Okay.
important thing to remember about dementia, the symptoms, forgetfulness, the not thinking clearly, the decision making, there are times when those dementia symptoms are reversible and they are treatable, right? So there are vitamin deficiencies, there are thyroid issues, there are metabolic diseases. You could have had surgery and had a major dose of anesthetic. And so for weeks, if anyone out there has ever had anesthetic, you have this brain fog. You just feel so weird. You can't,
Yeah.
you just can't function fully quite, right away. So you could have the post anesthetic brain fog. And there were just a litany of other things: sleep apnea, hearing loss, visual issues that all maybe can be fixed or treated or at least made better to increase your clearer cognitions. So that's the other thing. Get to your doctor and say, listen, this is what I'm doing, and this is new to me. I don't, and then they can rule everything out. So if all the other stuff has been ruled out, right, then they can start with a more definitive diagnosis, which again are some of the cognitive tests. There are blood tests. You guys, the tests they're not great. They're not inexpensive. Some of them are painful. There's a lumbar puncture, otherwise known as a spinal tap. You can get PET scans, MRIs, CAT scans, all kinds of other imaging. There are biomarkers. So not everyone can afford all of these things. Not everyone has the insurance that will cover that. So I think probably a lot of doctors can at least put all of the different pieces together and say, Amy, in my best medical judgment, based on these tests, I do think that you have A, B, or C: frontotemporal, Parkinson's, dementia. vascular dementia based on your sleep apnea and the fact that you had open heart surgery and the fact that you had a little TIA a year ago. So you get that diagnosis, and this is, what I hope that families can do is that they start putting, what I tell them is putting your team together, right? And it can be a lot of, different things. So first of all, I do think understanding your diagnosis is critical. So what in the world does this FTD mean, right? Bruce Willis's wife on the Diane Sawyer's program said that her doctor gave her a pamphlet. Yeah, pamphlet. Yeah, and basically said, call me with questions or I'll see you in 6 months. And she just, unfortunately, again, there are a lot of doctors that are becoming more comfortable, but there are also doctors that are not. So sometimes, unfortunately, it's left up to us to really get that information. I think now the internet is a more reliable source of information. Please, not everything, okay? But understanding the diagnosis, what might be coming down the pike, because the more you understand, and I know the more terrifying it can be. It can be. I feel, and I think Amy, you're the same way, that the more education, knowledge that you have, that's empowering, and it will be your kick in the pants to start putting things in place, right? So understand the diagnosis, whether that's asking your doctor for more information. Nope, I don't want a pamphlet. I want to come back in next week after I process this with my husband, and I want a consultation with you, and I want to know what to expect.
Yeah.
Calling your local Alzheimer's Association. They are a wealth of knowledge. Excuse me. And reaching out to, quite honestly, reaching out to maybe some memory care communities in your area and say, I don't know what to do now. Can I just come in and sit down with you? Maybe they have groups, maybe they have lectures. That's what I try to do with the Ganshorn Suites, is to just have all kinds of programming and educational lectures and things of that nature. TEPA Snow is another excellent source of information. TEEPA, snow, just like in winter. Here in Ohio, and again, she's everywhere. If you can Google her, name is Teresa Youngstrom. She is out of Cincinnati and is also a wealth of knowledge. So I think that those are some legitimate places that you can go to get some additional information. Go to your library. We have in Delaware County and Franklin County and in all of Central Ohio, we have some of the most engaging libraries that reach out, that have outreach. They can bring books to your house if you don't drive. They bring them to senior communities around around our area. But if you can go there, just immerse yourself. Go to the information desk and say, I need books about frontotemporal dementia, and then start from there. Okay, I've talked enough. What do you?
No, I'm thinking about 500 different things. I think that's a great place for people to start. I really love, I guess I'd say the human interaction is going to be key. I really like what you suggested. If somebody could even come and talk to someone like you at a facility, which I know you're all willing to do.
Yes.
Whether anyone's even contemplating a move or not,
right.
These people know their stuff.
Yeah.
This is what they do day in and day out. They know this disease.
Right.
I think the thing that was hardest for me is, I would say, witnessing even sometimes in facilities, the lack of education around it, that, you have to learn what's going on with your loved one. So that's obviously, like you're saying, get the research, know, okay, for instance, like Lewy body dementia, they can lash out quickly.
Yes.
They might throw the lamp. They might do things that just don't make sense, but it's part of the disease. So at least you know. But I think the other piece is that you need to learn, which is so difficult, how best to communicate and care for these people as the disease progresses.
Right.
So,
and that is a whole other, which I would be thrilled to come back, another podcast, is how to communicate, especially in the mid stage and late stage. In the earlier stages, where your family member might still be able to have really, really ongoing lucid conversations. And really, maybe at that point, all that really is incredibly prominent is their short-term memory loss. A lot of times that's the first thing, where they're constantly repeating, constantly asking you the same question. And, asking, 3 days later, hey, what time are we going out to dinner on Saturday? That's not dementia. My husband does that all the time.
I do too.
Yeah. But to ask that person 3 times in 15 minutes, that's not normal. So again, earlier stage communication looks very different than mid stage and late stage. And again, that would be whether it's me or a speaker from the Alzheimer's Association. That's incredibly important because it is an art. And I tell families that it is an art. It is an art to learn how to join their journey, to learn how to not try to reorient them to our reality, right? So if I have a resident that's hallucinating, actively hallucinating, and they see a child over there in the corner, I'm not going to say, "Oh my gosh, there's no kid over there."
Kid.
I'm going to say,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh, she is so cute. I love her dress. Listen, is she staying for lunch? Because if she is, I need to tell the chef to make some extra lunch.
Yeah.
Can you ask her?" Right? And it's not making fun of that person. It is,
No.
you are validating what they see, because let me tell you, out there, they are seeing that.
Yeah.
They are seeing that. And the sooner that you can understand that, and the sooner that you can join their journey, you do two things. They now trust you, and you've built an alliance with them, right?
Yeah.
And that
Enter
will,
their world. I
yeah,
think that's such a key. Just
yep,
enter their
enter
world.
their
It's
world.
okay.
We can come in and out of it, right?
Right.
We can come in and out of their world. They cannot come in and out of ours. Why do I care if one of my residents or someone that I'm sitting with that has dementia thinks that Jimmy Carter is president? I don't care. Why do I care? Why do I want to correct him? It doesn't make any difference. And it will make their life easier, and it will make your life easier as a caregiver and as a family member.
Well, that is an episode we're definitely going to have, because I
Yeah,
think it's so important to
it is
learn
so important.
that.
And there are some wonderful tools, and there are just, it's almost, I tell families, I'm like, role play a little bit, role play with each other and get used to it. Because also one of the other
Yeah.
things is what we call compassionate deception, which again is typically like in the moderate and late stage, when someone might come to me, they're 89 years old and they're looking for their parents, and clearly their parents have been gone for years. I'm never going to tell that person that, right? But I'm going to compassionately deceive them and say, you know what? I am so sorry. You're going to kill me. Your mom called earlier and said that she's running late to pick you up from school. I forgot to give you the message. I'm so sorry. But she's probably on her way, right?
Yeah.
You see this relief, right?
Yeah.
Versus, oh my God, Amy, your parents have been dead for 35 years. Remember, we talked about it last week. You asked me that last week. You laugh, Amy, but there are people that don't understand that. And
I know.
right, and
I know. And I just
not,
think to myself,
yeah,
would you want to hear that news
right,
over
right,
and over
right.
again for the first time?
Exactly. Imagine,
No.
yeah, if you're cognitively intact with all of your brain cells, you don't want to talk about and hear about someone that you love that's passed away, right? Because then
No.
that goes into a whole other rabbit hole. Oh my gosh, why I didn't go here and I didn't go to their funeral. So anyway, again, whole other podcast series that would be so incredibly informative, if for a lot of different types of speakers.
We'll
So
definitely do that. So
yeah,
we're going back to, at this point now,
you got
um
the
I've
diagnosis.
got my diagnosis. Now, you said identify my team. I think,
Right.
let's talk about what you mean by
Yeah.
that. Who's my
So I
team?
think there are two teams, right?
Okay.
I think there's your medical team,
Okay.
and here's the thing, you need to love your doctor. You know, I sorry, I should say, as a social worker, that's important for me, right? I need someone that's warm and fuzzy, touchy feely, someone that's going to sit with me, cry with me, and not placate me, right? Now, there are many other people out there that's not important to them. What's important to them is, listen, I want direct, I want information, and I want it now. I don't need all the mamby-pamby, touchy-feely, warm stuff. So what I'm telling people is, find a doctor that you are comfortable with in whatever camp you're in.
Okay.
um Find a neurologist. Like I said, get on every freaking wait list you can, because I will tell you that all of the neurologists in Columbus all have cancellation lists, and they're all excellent about calling families back
Okay.
when those cancellations happen. And sometimes it's very quick. They might say, hey, we can see you in 3 months, and you get a call the next week. I think occupational therapists, if you're looking for ways to keep your loved one strong and physically capable, look at home health care that have therapists, physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists. Again, remember certain dementias cause a lot of language issues. Frontotemporal is one of them. So, reaching out to places, and a lot of times insurance will cover those visits at home. It's always worth an ask.
Okay.
And then, this is one that a lot of people don't think of. Pharmacists, please try to have one pharmacy that you go to, because Amy, I'm telling you, um, if you've got a team of doctors, they're not always communicating with each other. And
Yeah.
your pharmacists are going to be the one to say, whoa, 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 Amy, do you know that this particular medication is going to have a huge impact on your, maybe something you're taking for your heart, or, something else, an antibiotic or something. So try to have one pharmacist doing
I
all
would
the
have never
meds.
thought of that, but
Yeah,
you're exactly right, because you're
they're
going
going
to
to
all these
catch.
different specialists,
Mhm.
and they're prescribing what's good for their specialty.
Yeah,
But who is looking at,
yeah,
oh my gosh, are all these okay to take together?
yeah,
So that's super
exactly.
advice. Okay,
Right,
so
right.
I need my pharmacist. So I've got my medical
So you got
team.
your medical team, and then I think the other team is just is your family, your extended family, your neighbors, your coworkers. If you're still young enough to be working, and again, I know that not everyone works in an environment where they share. I'm very blessed that, my management team and my caregivers, they are my second family. My God, I spend 50 hours a week here. I hope they are.
Right.
We have cried together. We have laughed together. We've experienced deaths of husbands, sisters, parents, children, everything. But if you don't work in a situation like that, I'm sorry. My heart hurts for you. But if you could at least have a relationship with your manager or your boss, so that if you do have to take some time off for doctor's appointments in the initial phase, there might be a lot of doctor's appointments,
Sure.
um, or maybe meeting, having to meet someone at home to, maybe it's a therapist. So your office and your work can be a team. I talked about your neighbors. Again, I I'm so blessed. We have the most incredible neighbors. Hey, Ann, your garage door is up at 11 o'clock at night. Oh my God, thank you. I thought my husband put it down.
Yeah.
Hey, can you grab my mail? We're going out of town for the weekend. If you have neighbors like that look out for each other, please let them know. And the reason I say that is because, let's say, your husband's never wandered out, never wandered out of the house. Yeah, yet that's the key word. They can always wander out. They can have a moment of confusion. They could be experiencing urinary tract infection. They could have maybe over medicated while you were at work, and they're extra confused and they walk outside. And your neighbors need to be able to say, why is Bob out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when Marge is still working? Right. And so having that extra safety net of people, your neighbors, they deserve to know, right? The more people that know,
No.
um, I just feel like the stigma becomes less and less, because, Amy, you and I've talked, there is still a stigma to this disease, even though there's not a darn thing that we've done to deserve it or do it or mess something up on our brains. It just happens. So I think the more people that know, the better it is. Your church, if you're lucky enough to have a faith community, please let them know. They can be a huge source of support. And then your family, right? Not everyone has a super supportive family. If you
No.
don't, again, my heart bleeds for you, and I'm sorry. But if you at least have one or two people in your family that you can say, hey, you guys, I just want to let you know this is what's happening with Dad. Um, but if you do have a supportive family, the more people that know, the better. You need to have your team, you need to have your village, because everyone at some point is going to have their place on this
And I
care
think,
team.
yeah, what I want to talk to you about, because I would love to know how you would answer this, is I've had many people over the years say to me, when I've encouraged them to do what you're saying, let your neighbors know, let your, family, they will say, because as you know, when typically people are in the early stages, I'm not sure which stage is the worst, but when you're in that early
Yeah,
stage and you're aware
yeah,
that mind isn't working as well as it used to be, and now I've gotten this diagnosis, I'm embarrassed. I'm
right.
totally embarrassed by this. Like you're talking about the stigma. And what I struggled with is I would have families say to me, well, mom's embarrassed. And so she doesn't want us to tell anyone.
Right.
And I would try to say, but it's going to help all of you if everybody
Mhm.
can just keep their eyes out, like you're saying, if she
Right.
gets lost driving, or because like you're saying, it's the answer's yet. Just
Right.
because you say she's never roamed doesn't
Right.
mean that she won't,
Right.
because
Or
the
she's never
disease,
taken the car out at midnight.
and
Mhm.
doesn't mean she won't. And I
Right.
know it's a hard thing to realize. So if you are hearing that from families, what is your piece of advice
Mm.
where you say, listen, I understand that mom's embarrassed and she doesn't want to tell anyone? What
Right.
would you say to them?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it is. It's a, it is a conundrum because, you do want to respect the person that's living with this disease. So I'm always going to go back, Amy, to open conversation, e- especially with the person living with the disease. Mom, I want you to know that I'm sure that, I don't oh gosh, that's hard. Mom, I think you're probably embarrassed by this disease, and I want you to know that I don't understand what you're going through, but I know that there are so many people out there that love you and they don't care that you have this disease. As a matter of fact, they're reaching out you know, um in numbers to ask how they can support us and support you, and I'm trying to do the best I can, and so I'm just going to tell a few people, and we don't have to go into great detail, Mom, right? And then just kind of see what her response is, right? And she may say no. And that's when it can be really difficult. And I think sometimes you have to disobey your parents at that point and just say, Mom, I've got to have some support here. And again, you're not getting on the closed Facebook neighborhood,
No.
Facebook page and announcing it. It's just in the beginning, maybe just as a few, um, you know, uh, intimate friends and neighbors.
And I think what's hard is like, I hear you using the word disobey, but part of me says, yeah, I feel like I would be disobeying my parents. But
Hmm.
the thing about this disease, as you and I know, is the brain's not working like
Right,
it used to work. So
right,
when you've got someone who is not always capable of remembering
right,
or making, you can't reason with them as well,
right,
those pieces aren't working, then it's hard to say, well, when is it the time that
right,
I
right,
disobey or I step
right.
in and say, I'm making this decision?
And this is what I'm really big about analogies when I meet with families. And one of the analogies that I would say to them is, Mom, when I was a kid and I was 6 years old, um, and let's say you had to leave me alone at home a lot because you were a single mom and you had to work. Would you not have wanted the neighbors and some of our friends to know that I was home alone so that if I needed them or you needed to call someone, that they knew that I was home alone? It's kind of a similar thing. I need for people to know that you're struggling with this disease that is no fault of your own,
Mhm.
because I need to have people that can watch out for you when I'm not around, right? So if you had a special needs child, you would want neighbors to know. So again, I'm big about analogies, and sometimes families like, oh yeah, that's right. I wasn't really thinking about that. And again, it may not work, Amy. Nothing is 100% with this disease. Every family
No,
is
but
different. Every person live with this disease is different.
and I think the stigma too that it bothers me is that there are a lot of families I would meet with, and I would say to them, like you're using analogies. I would say, okay, let's say your loved one hurt his hip, needs a walker, needs some medical equipment that's helping with the mobility because
Hmm.
physically something has happened.
Right.
I think the thing that's hard about when you're looking at dementia, physically, everything looks the same.
Yes.
They can often, I remember meeting with clients, they could walk 5 miles in a day and
Oh,
think
yeah.
nothing of it,
Right.
and they can't tie a shoe.
Right.
So you, that's, I think, another challenge with the family is
Yeah.
you're saying, well, I can't see anything wrong. Like
Right.
everything seems fine. It's
Right.
the same thing. And I
Yeah.
think that's what I would ask families to try to think about is there is some stuff going on there. You can't see it,
Right.
but physically in that brain there, it's not
Right.
communicating like it
Right.
used to, which is why
Right.
you might have to step in and make some decisions
Yeah.
that they're
Yeah.
not going to agree with.
And I think also, Amy, sometimes families, the primary caregiver is around that person so much that they don't see the deficits as much. Again, analogy, I say to families, if you're living with someone that's losing weight, you don't necessarily
Oh,
notice it
true.
right away. But if that person sees someone they haven't seen for 6 months, they're like, oh my God, you're like a shadow of your former self. I think we just get so used to seeing that person in that light that we don't always know how vast their limitations are.
That's a great way to say it, and that's so true. Because when you are with
When
someone
you're in the
all
thick
the
of it.
time,
Mhm.
you're not seeing that.
Right.
So
That's why so many times, we talk about in healthcare, the healthcare holidays where the adult children come home with the holidays and then your phone starts ringing right after Christmas because, the adult children go, oh my God, I haven't been home. In 6 months, I live in California. I came home to see my
mhm,
parents. They live in Columbus. Oh, Anne, my dad covers up really well. If I ask him if I can talk to mom, who's the one living with dementia, he might say, "Oh gosh, she's cleaning up the dishes or she's
yeah,
out letting the dog out." And in reality, you didn't want to talk to mom because she is so much more advanced, or they didn't want them to see their house because there are dishes in the sink, there are cockroaches, that the refrigerator's empty.
yeah.
Mom's lost 20 pounds. Dad has bags under his eyes because he's not sleeping. Why? Because mom's not sleeping. So again, there are all these dynamics. These dynamics.
Okay, so we're gonna go back to then we've
Yeah.
got our medical team, we've got our
Tangent.
family. Just no, it's good. I love all of our tangents. So I'm like, okay, I'm still trying to go back to
Right.
I've got my
So,
team,
yep.
and I do think you and I are on the same page, whether people listening want to agree with us or not, that I
Right.
feel like you do need to disobey sometimes
Yeah.
and do what's best
Right.
because uh, I think you would agree with me. I've never seen this disease get better.
Right.
It
Yeah.
doesn't get better. So I think that that's what people have to understand as well is that it's unfortunately not going to get better. So
It
you're
is
going to have
progressive.
to make some
Right.
decisions that
Right.
you feel like you're overstepping, but really your intent is to protect.
Right.
That's it.
Absolutely. Right.
So
Whether it's your spouse, whether it's your parent, whether it's your sibling. I meet with people that are nieces and nephews or their grandchildren. So yeah, so that leads me into the next team,
okay.
which would be your kind of your financial legal team, right?
Ooh, good.
So when you get that diagnosis, it is incredibly important. I don't care whether you have $1 in the bank or a bazillion dollars in the bank. I don't care whether you have nothing to, give as an estate or everything. You need to have power of attorney documents into place. Why? So there's healthcare and there's financial. So when that person is not able to make their own decisions, then you can step in, right? And again, when it's adult child to parent, it can be a much different conversation because I was born and raised in the time. I'm going to be 61, so my parents, I was born in 64. That generation, my parents did not talk to us about finances. I didn't have any idea about my parents' finances until I had to know after my dad had passed away, and I was really the one here in town helping my mom and needing to be on her checking account so if something happened. So there's the financial power of attorney, but also the healthcare power of attorney. So if the person live with dementia, is not able to make their own healthcare decisions, and that doesn't mean just like when you're thinking about putting them in a memory care community, it's hospitalizations, it's all, it's the HIPAA forms, you guys, so that you can go to
Mhm.
the doctor with your loved one and get that information. You are on their HIPAA privacy list. Um, I also tell families that it's also super critical to go with them on those appointments. Why? Because they can make their brain cells fire for the 15 minutes that they're in the doctor's office, and the doctor will come out and go, I don't know what you're concerned about, Mrs. Huddleston.
Yeah.
Clay's fine,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Um, so the other key to that is if you aren't comfortable talking in front of the person living with dementia, like, hey doc, this is what he's doing, which I don't blame them. That is a little awkward and off-putting. You can send a message through like the My Chart.
My
Again,
chart.
here in Ohio, we have My Chart, and say, Dr. Smith, my dad is not going to tell you, but this is what's going on.
Yes.
So that doctor is aware and can then, so if your dad says, you're not going in the room with me, and again, you guys, you can't force yourself. at least now that the doctor has a list of concerns that you sent them ahead of time, you messaged them ahead of time. So financial planning, for the power of attorney documents, HIPAA, get on the checking account, people that can make your healthcare decisions, your financial decisions, and then advanced care planning. I know it's not great, but what do you want to happen when, when this disease progresses to the point that maybe you don't want to live on a ventilator and feeding tubes and things. So all of those advanced care planning, they're called advanced directives, advanced care planning. I'm not saying you have to run out and do funeral arrangements, but that could be also part of advanced care planning. I was a funeral director for 13 years. I'm still a funeral director. I just don't practice. And it was super comforting for families to not have to also do that at the time of someone's passing. And
Yes.
then insurance, reach out to your insurance provider, find out, there are insurance companies that might have some provisions for in-home care that's not even part of a long-term care policy. And,
Meaning your Medicare, like your Medicare insurance or
some
supplemental?
people have told me that. Yeah, they
Okay.
didn't have any idea. They called their provider and said, "Hey, what will you pay for?" And they were like, "Hey, you've got this weird little rider over here that." So anyway, I'm not saying they all do, but some of
But
them,
ask.
it's worth asking,
Yeah,
right?
they're not going to volunteer the information to you. But I think
Nope.
one thing I would like to clarify, because I think it's all that was phenomenal advice. And I 1,000% agree with you to get all of your ducks in a row with these
Right.
items before it gets too late. There's lots of things I'm thinking, but I do want to ask, like, if it does get too late, if they are not in their right mind and they
Yeah.
haven't done these documents, is that when you typically would need to get a
Guardianship.
yes?
So, God, Amy, and I'm not an attorney, so I want to be very, very
Me
careful.
neither. Yeah, we're just
Um,
bringing up a word.
so,
That's it, not advice.
so, if you have a lifelong relationship with your attorney, and that attorney is comfortable, filling out paperwork on a day when they truly feel that that person knows that they're having a really good day. Like, hey, Amy, you and I go way back. Clay would like to be able to make decisions for you down the road. Are you okay with that? Yeah, I don't want anyone else but my husband. Right? That's clarity, right? So you do have some attorneys, but not everyone has a lifelong relationship with their attorney. So sometimes you do have to get guardianship. You can, you go through your local, county court, whatever county you're in. Sometimes people get guardianship because the family is splintered,
Oh,
and there
yes.
has to be someone that is going to, be able to make all the decisions and for in the best interest of that person. You can also, there are attorneys that act as guardians as well. Maybe no one in the family wants to do it, but everyone is family dynamics are all over the place, so attorneys can step in. There are attorneys that specialize in that, and there are certain things that they have to do as a result of being a guardian. Um, so it really depends on what state you're in, and I would definitely reach out to your attorney and say, "Man, we missed the boat on this one, and my dad's kind of in the mid stage, and I don't know what to do. I need to be able to make decisions." Attorneys will be able to tell you.
The elder law attorneys. I do think too, like you
Elder
said
law
though,
attorneys, yeah.
yeah, if you can, I mean, get these things done though now, do it now. I feel like we should have all those things done now. I
Yeah,
mean, that way they're done. You're not having to panic because
right,
it's often something pretty bad has
right,
happened and now you're going, "Oh my gosh." But
right,
if you had these things in place ahead of time, that's already just one less thing that you've got to worry about, that you've already have access to the
right,
finances, you've got access to medical
right.
records. It's enormous.
Right.
So
Yeah, and
that's good
also
advice.
making sure that there are at least, I am so sorry, I cannot turn my phone off for some
Oh,
reason.
it's okay.
Um
You're a busy lady.
making sure that there are maybe at least two people on the different um powers of attorney. So for example, if a husband is the primary caregiver for his wife and he is the power of attorney, God forbid, what happens when he passes away? Then what you need to have is that contingent or kind of that secondary person. So obviously it would be an adult child or someone else in the family, whatever it is. Maybe that's when the attorney steps in. But so just super important to go over all the documents and know what's in place and what isn't. And know that there are answers, okay? And elder law attorneys are wonderful. And the only thing I was going to say, Amy, is also if your family member is a veteran, reach out to your local
Yes.
Veterans Administration. There might be benefits that you're not aware of. Um, if they were in certain during conflicts or wars, they might be eligible for the aid and attendance benefit, which is
Yes.
a very nice financial benefit. That's through the the pension office of the VA. So, just looking into all those things.
I was going to say too, I think it's good when you mention the financial aspect.
Yeah.
So we don't have to go into great detail, but knowing, and I'm sure every state is different, but when you've got somebody that's got this dementia diagnosis, you obviously can try to keep them at home, maybe with
Yeah,
caregivers, family. You've
sure.
got some resources there, but there are also reasons why facilities exist, especially ones that are a secured unit
Right.
for people that can roam. So let's talk for just a brief moment about there's a cost. This isn't covered by the government.
Mm-mm.
So when you are talking about getting your financial ducks in a row, I think it's a good thing to share that the cost associated, if you can even just estimate
Yeah.
roughly monthly,
Right. Right.
what can a family expect to pay for that?
Right. So again, state to state is different depending on the type of community it is. So the Ganshorn Suites is a specialized memory care assisted living. We're fully secured here. We're, as you mentioned earlier, we are a better fit for mid and late stage. There are also communities that are a better fit for earlier stages. So that's going to be maybe a lower rate. I would say that most people in any state would estimate monthly between $7,000 to $12,000
A month.
a month.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you've got, and primarily that's private pay. There
primarily.
are some, if people had long-term care insurance,
Correct.
that could
Right.
be an option to help with funding.
If they have it before the diagnosis,
Correct. Before
that's
the
the problem.
diagnosis.
Hmm.
Then you also, like you said, should absolutely look into veterans benefits if
Yes.
the person was a veteran or the spouse,
Yes.
right? So
Could.
you've got
Yeah.
two
Hmm.
options there.
Yep. Might.
And so there's at least you've got some avenues to
Right.
pursue for potential, help. At least it's a very expensive.
It is very expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you need to know that though, that
Right.
here's what's
I know.
coming.
Yeah.
How do we plan for that? So you
Right.
look at, do mom and dad own their house and or their condo,
Right.
or what kind of
Right.
assets do they have? So
Right.
that's what you got to plan for.
Yep, when there are companies, that can do bridge loans. There are companies that do reverse mortgages. Again, you guys, I'm not saying that's the way to go. I'm just saying there are lots of things that people can look at.
Yep.
And sometimes families need to all pitch in. If you can't financially afford a memory care community and you're keeping your loved one home, remember when I said that eventually everyone's going to have a role? That's when people can come into play. I've met with families that all the kids rotate every week, so that mom can stay in her house or the dad can stay in the house. So the kids come in, stay for a week. Then another child comes in, stays for a week. Maybe there's a sibling that stays for a week. I mean, God bless those families.
I was going to say, if you have a family like that,
Mm,
those are angels,
I
because
know.
you don't typically hear that. And I think
Right.
what's a gift about that is that every single sibling will understand the situation,
Right.
because it's definitely, I'm sure as you've seen too, it's really easy to judge
Right.
when you're in a couple states over and
Right.
you're not living in this
Yes.
every day.
Yes.
It's a lot different, a lot different. So
we,
I think
we
that
have
that
a
is a gift.
we have a term for them, and I won't say it because we're on national TV.
You
I'll
could
tell
tell
you,
me later.
I'll tell you later on the side,
You
Miss
can tell
Amy.
me later on the side, but
Um,
I feel like when I hear a story like that, though, I'm like, oh,
yeah.
they raise some great kids. If they've got kids that are
Oh my
willing to do
God.
that,
I
my
know.
heart melts.
I know. I know. And again, there's private duty. But again, just like memory care, it's not always affordable. Maybe
No.
you could do, 10 to 12 hours a week, and then, just to give the whole family some respite. But there are some other, so for example, again, here in Delaware County, you all in Columbus, there's Source Point, they offer services to older adults on a sliding scale. Um, in Ohio, every county has its own area agency on aging.
Mhm.
I don't know about other states, but that's also an excellent source. A lot of those things are done for people that are either living on a fixed income, limited income, living below the poverty line, need a sliding scale. Again, it's just, sitting down and having the time to do all this. We also have lives, we have children, we have full-time jobs. And so, again, for those people that are listening, I am not saying that this is easy. But there are resources out there. There are geriatric care managers, again,
Mhm.
not free of charge. If you are blessed enough to be able to afford that, these are people that can take a lot of this off of the plate for families. They're not senior referral agencies. They're geriatric care managers that have different certifications and different licenses, and can really help navigate this with you guys.
We're definitely going to do an episode with those so
Yeah.
people can better understand like what they
Yes.
are and what they
So
offer.
cool. I think there's going to
Um,
be a big wave in the future of that field.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Let's talk about if they're staying at home right now,
Yeah.
earlier stages, but you are a little bit concerned about safety,
Right.
just about they're still driving.
Yeah.
They're still at home. Maybe they've got their sticky notes to remind them. Maybe
Big
they've missed.
whiteboard.
Yep. But maybe they've missed some appointments, or you got like the
Yeah.
big calendar so you can help
Right.
them remember this is the day, this is the
Right.
time.
Right.
Are there any other helpful items like products that you think
Yeah.
are helpful in
Yeah.
these early stages?
Right. So I think one of the biggest concerns I have about people living by themselves, or even living with a caregiver that maybe is still working, or if the person lived with dementia is 85 years old and their caregiver is 89 or 90. And again, please understand, I'm not saying that people that are at that age are feeble. What I'm saying is they have a lot of things going on and they're trying to balance and manage a lot of things at home. And I think one of the things that can be concerning is the medication management.
Mhm.
um you can put 50 pills in a tray, but guess what? If your loved one goes and opens up all the little trays and says, "What?" and puts everything in, that's really concerning. So there are things like automatic pill dispensers
Mhm.
that are lockable, or they can deliver the medication at certain times. Um, and again, if you think that your loved one is going to be okay with the pill organizer, then you can do those. But there are some that are a little bit more sophisticated that still might be a little bit safer.
Yes.
Um, we
I like
talk.
those because some of them you can even set up a whole month at a time. An alarm sounds, the medication
Yes,
dispenses at the time it's supposed to be taken, and they can't access any other compartment. That's it.
correct. And some of them even talk to you. Some of them say, "Hey, Amy, it's time for your medicine." And if you don't take it, if you don't take it off a little tray or something, then they even can send like a little. It'll even send another reminder. Hey, don't forget to take your medicine.
Okay.
Those are really cool. One thing I wanted to also mention before I forget, because it's not on my list, and I'm sorry. As much as I tell people to please be quiet during my podcast,
You are doing great.
um, is the caption phones. So for people that are hard of hearing in Ohio, and I don't know where anywhere else, CapTel, it is a free phone. It's through a grant through the government. So it's the phones that have the captions, Amy. So you
Okay.
can still talk on the phone and the captions come through on a big screen. They will provide the phone, they will come in, they will set it up. I think all you need maybe is Wi-Fi. I don't even know if you need Wi-Fi. You might just need internet. Anyway, again, in Ohio, it's
Sweet.
called CapTel,
Okay.
CapTel. I don't know how it is in every state. I don't know if it's a federal or if it's state.
We'll find
Um,
out.
but yeah, but in Ohio, and so few people know about that. And literally, it is free. I'm telling you, I've had the reps. I've met with them.
That's great.
It's really cool. So again, just something else that helps them to stay at home, either by themselves or with, another caregiver. So we've already talked a little bit about wandering.
Yep.
So if they're still living at home, and they love to go out and walk, or they love to go get the mail, they love to walk the dog. Wow, please, as long as they can, let them do that. It keeps them physically active. It helps with their fall risk and keeps their core, and it just gives them a sense of independence. But what happens, when dad gets to the end of the road and goes, huh, and goes the wrong way, right?
Yep.
And now he's on, a busy street, or he's out of the neighborhood. So there are all kinds of wandering and location safety devices. There are GPS, they're like wearable devices. You can do
Okay.
air tags. You can put them in a woman's purse, you can put them in their sneakers, you can put them in other shoes that they wear. There are the life alerts, the pendants, so they can push a button to say, I've fallen or I don't know where I am.
Yes.
Um, there are also different types of pressure mats that you can put next to someone's bed. So if they get up, an alarm, I think they're called like here in, like in healthcare, they're called fall mats. But they send off an alert to your caregiver. Again, thinking if you're living in a house, so
Yes.
they're sleeping in another bed, in another bedroom, or even in the same bedroom. Maybe you're so tired you can sleep through a storm,
It's
and
true.
this will send an alarm. So you're like, okay, where is he? I know we got bells on the door,
Yeah.
alarms on the door, deadlocks, all kinds of things. We've talked about the medical alert. There are again smart fall sensors. Here's what I would do, Amy, because there's a whole list. If people just Google, safety and technology for people who live with dementia, you will come up with a whole list of companies and devices, and you can kind of go through some things. You can do, then the simple things, grab bars by the toilets and in the shower. Can you just put a shower chair or a shower bench in the shower, in the shower? Just all kinds of different things that will allow that person to stay home longer. Not even someone live with dementia, but just being an older adult.
Right.
We all need grab bars at some point.
Right.
So I would just, really Google, safety and technology for those live with dementia, and you're going to come up with all kinds of different things.
You just gave an incredible list. And I think you and I had talked about this before, but when I had gone through a dementia training years ago, it stuck with me because they said, when you meet one person with dementia, you meet one person with dementia.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sharing that because you're giving this great, amazing list, but everyone that we're talking to is dealing with someone that is different.
Mm-hmm.
It might be you get the very pleasant ones that they're
Right,
fine to sit and, chit chat and
right.
everything's just
Watch the birds
peachy.
and listen to music.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to wander.
Mm-hmm.
They're good right where they
Right,
are.
right,
And it's very pleasant. And that you have others who are incredibly physically active and can't be still and
right.
I met a family once. I couldn't
Always
believe
going.
she said, the husband was outside because he loved to garden. They had, a bunch of tomato plants out there and he loved to garden. And next thing she knows, she gets a call from their local bank that it was 7 miles away from their house. He had walked on the
Oh,
freeway
oh
to the
my
bank,
God,
and sat
Amy.
down on the bench and said, I am tired, and thankfully the bank knew who he was able to
See,
call. That's why
remember
you
your
have the network.
team,
Yes,
your
your team.
team.
So they
Yes,
knew, okay, let's call his wife. And so that's a good lesson. You're right
right,
on why you need your team, but it's like you just don't know. You
right,
don't know
right,
what you're going to need, but an
right,
alarm on a door would have been helpful there.
right,
Tag on a
right.
sneaker.
Also, any type of identification card. Hey, this person's name is Amy Huddleston. She's living with dementia. Please call this number. I know it sounds crazy,
Great.
but just things like that. The Alzheimer's Association has cards that say, the person I'm with is living with dementia. Please give us some grace and patience. Those are wonderful. When you're going into a restaurant, you can just very delicately give it to the hostess or to the bartender or to the waiter or waitress. You can take it to the airport when you're flying through TSA,
That's
and
good.
so there are things out there. But yeah, Amy, I mean, again, that is a perfect example of a team. If your bank knows. I just had a family member that came in for support group. I have a daytime support group, and she came in, parked her car, and got an emergency phone call from her daughter who was staying with her husband. She had to go home. Her husband, who also loves to garden, had fallen into the pond. Yeah, deep pond. His injuries were not egregious, thank God. But so for her, what it was, and again, this is another topic. All the grief and loss that's associated with this disease, all it did was make her realize that, dang, I I can't let him do this anymore by himself. Right? It was one of the few things that still gave him purpose, that she felt like he could do it independently and she didn't have to be out there kind of, hovering over him. Not that she would care about doing that, but it was something that gave him um, a certain amount of, autonomy. And that was it. She thought, wow, just one more thing now that's been taken away from him. I can't leave him out there by himself. So it was a really heartbreaking day for her. And luckily she was able to come back to support group, and we were able to, support her, and we all sat around and cried, and then we laughed. And don't lose your sense of humor. That's the other
You
thing.
you have to laugh. I mean, I know that that's so difficult, but I agree with you that there's just times that because you will cry. I mean, you definitely
Hmm.
are going to cry because, like you said, you're grieving. I think that's a thing that was always hard for me to see, which I understand, is that you've got the adult kids or the spouse, they're grieving their loved one,
Yes. Yes.
and they're really struggling with shifting to this caregiver role because they're trying to grieve.
Right.
This isn't the same. The mom's not the same.
Right.
She's not the same
Right.
mom that I know, and I'm really having a hard time with this. And I don't want to overstep my boundaries, and I want to give her, as much independence as possible. But yet, I am getting nervous because she's making some decisions that don't make sense or don't seem
Right.
safe. But
Right.
it's this struggle of. But I just my advice is you've got to step in for them
Right.
as hard as it is, and you're saying I want them to maintain their independence. You don't have a choice,
Right.
and you need to do it.
Right. Also, just real quick, I'll think about that. Also, scams, you guys, financial scams. It happens all the time. It happens all the time to anyone. It doesn't matter whether you're an older adult. It doesn't matter whether you're 30 years old. It doesn't matter whether you're living with a fully intact brain. Scammers are really, really good now. And so imagine someone that's living with some cognitive impairment. Sometimes these folks are so trusting. Oh,
Yeah.
sure. You know what? I was just thinking that I needed my gutters cleaned, right? Or, you know what? I would love for you to come in and give me an estimate on painting the inside of my house. And the next thing they've been, scammed out of whatever. They've been robbed. They picked up their wallet while they were in there. So again, just thinking about all of these, reasons again why we need to have some of these safety measures. I know it's terrible, but sometimes you have to take their credit cards away. You cannot allow them to have access to the checking account. I talk to spouses all the time and say, "Oh my God, my wife wrote a $7,000 check to a charity that I've never even heard of."
Yeah.
So it is, you guys. It is a different world when you get this diagnosis. It is grief. It is loss, and it is okay to be mad, and it is okay to be so angry that this is not what I signed up for. This is a burden. The person's not a burden. The disease is a burden. Everything that comes along with it is a burden.
Yeah.
But it is okay to be so freaking mad that you just want to throw in the towel and scream, because it's
Which I
just
think is
awful.
also why when you mention your support groups, I
Mhm.
definitely had families many times over the years, though, say to me, well, I'm not quite ready for that. I don't think I need to do that yet.
I don't want to sit around with a bunch of people that are crying and in their coffee. It's
Uh,
so different. Oh,
and
there
it's
is some of that,
there is, but I'm
but
saying
oh,
what what is better though than
right,
being with people that understand
right, right.
what you're going through?
Right, because we cry, we laugh,
Yeah.
we giggle, we share resources. John, one of my like I just say that he's my caregiver extraordinaire. He goes to everything he can possibly get to. And they will just share things. Well, you know what? My wife used to say, you know what worked for me? Blah 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 blah
Yes.
blah blah.
Yes.
And it may not work for you, but this is what I did, right? And just to also hear other people say, God, I thought I was the only person that felt that way. I thought I was the only person that wanted to lock the door and walk away. I thought I was the only person feeling that way, right? You're not.
You're
Every
not.
single person that's dealing with this disease, whether you're the caregiver or a person living with dementia, um, they felt that way. And
I
and
highly
if you
encourage
think you're the only
people.
person feeling that way, that is the worst feeling in the world.
You're so alone.
Yeah,
But I think, and I understand that it's hard for people, like, especially if they're still caring for their loved one at home
right,
and they're saying,
right,
well, how am I supposed to get there? If you can ask a neighbor, if you
Right.
can ask your children,
Right.
can someone just stay with dad for a couple
Right.
of hours or
Right.
visit,
Right.
just so you can go get some oxygen and
Right.
be with people.
Right.
I highly, highly
Right.
recommend
Right.
it.
Yeah, I mean, and ask them if they have respite. The support groups that I do, and some of the events I do, if I have the space and the ability, we provide respite during the support group, so the caregiver can come to the group and bring their loved one in there in a separate area of the building with professional caregivers.
Oh, that's so
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Okay.
So, it's worth asking,
Yes.
and it's worth asking your children. It's worth asking them, saying, listen, it's just one evening a month, or it's
Yeah.
4 weeks in a row at this time. And, you keep saying you want to help, and this is how you can help. And that's the other thing that I know we're probably winding up. This is the other thing I'm going to end with, that you and I talked about the other day, Amy. Two things that people need to become comfortable with. And I know it's incredibly hard because I'm terrible at it: learning how to ask for help and learning how to accept that help, right? If you have a neighbor that says, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And you keep saying, nothing, I'm good, nothing, I'm good. They're going to stop asking. You know what? People want to help. The older I get, the more convinced I am of that. There are so many good, beautiful people in this world, and they want to help. And it doesn't have to be anything major. Oh my God, you know what's great? I don't have any butter. Can you
Yeah.
grab some butter and milk? Or you know what? I was supposed to pick up my granddaughter from daycare, and I completely forgot. Do you mind staying with my husband while I run down the street? Or you can pick her up, or you know, and you have to be comfortable asking for help. I can't do this all. Kids, grandkids, whoever is part of that team, I can't do it all. I need your help. And
Just get
people will
used to
come.
it. Yeah.
People will come. I just
I
believe
agree.
that.
But you got to be comfortable with it. So this is so helpful. So basically, if I'm listening to everything that you've shared with me, I'm saying, let's say my loved one just got this dementia diagnosis. I first am going to research
Yep.
my dementia diagnosis, because there are so many different kinds. So I want to understand the kind that my loved one
Right.
has and what to expect from
Right.
it in the
Some of the
behavior.
specific challenges that might come
Yes.
along with it. Hmm.
I think that's really important, so
Yeah.
that I can know, because like you said, it's not all the same thing, and they're not all Alzheimer's. So
Right.
I need to know what we're dealing with. At that point, then I'm going to establish my team. I'm going to establish, let's say it's my dad's doctor. And I love your advice. I'm going to get on every neurologist list that I can, because I want to get into a neurologist, because
Yeah.
that's their specialty.
Yeah.
So I'll start with dad's primary care doctor, but I'm going to go that route of neurologist list until we can get in there and figure out if there's anything else we could try that could be helpful. I love what you said too about ruling everything out when you are going to the doctor, because I agree 1,000%. There are people that have, they just have hearing loss, and
Right.
it's creating kind of the symptoms of memory loss, where it might
Right.
just be they're not hearing properly.
Right. And if
So
you say something to me and I'm not hearing it, and I'm going, oh,
yeah, I think,
you might think,
what's wrong with
whoa,
Anne?
mom,
Like,
what's going on
yeah,
there, mom? Right. And in reality, all it is I'm not hearing well.
yes. So rule it all out, get my diagnosis. I've researched it. I've got my team. And then I'm really going to figure out in my family who's our team, and our neighbors and friends, because I think that's an enormous support system and help, and encouraging dad and mom to be okay with sharing this news with people.
Yes.
I'm going to look at dad's situation and figure out, are there any tools I need? Like, you know what? He is having some issues with medication. So I am going to get that medication machine. I'm going to, look into a life alert. The other thing I was thinking is, Life 360. We've used that for our
Oh,
kids.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I like that, of just, if I can put mom or dad on my Life 360 account and just see where they are,
That's
then
great.
I'll know
Right.
if he did get lost, I'll
Ugh.
know how to find him.
Right. Or if they're
Um,
driving, good God.
yeah. So
Right.
I've got my tools. I do think I would support, obviously looking at as much knowledge as I could get from people that have gone through it,
Right.
not just on the internet. I'd really want to talk to people that have gone
Right.
through it. So I'd want to talk to an expert like you. I'd want to say, what kind of support groups do you offer? What webinars are you offering? I know you have educational sessions all the time.
Yeah.
I'd want to just consume this information and figure out what works for me and what doesn't,
Right.
and encourage my siblings to do the same so that we're all on the same page and can
Right.
understand what's
Right.
happening. I would get my financial and legal team in place, which I think is phenomenal advice for anybody, whether you have dementia or not.
Right.
Get those ducks in
Right.
a row.
Right.
Figure out what kind of finances your parents have to work with, what they don't, and make sure that you're on the bank accounts and the documents that you need
Right.
so that as this progresses, you won't have that headache.
Right.
That's enormously helpful. So maybe joining a support group is another one. If I needed to look into veteran services, I could. If my dad is a veteran, but that is a really phenomenal start.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you can think of that could be helpful for families at this stage?
Yeah. I just knowing that, you know, I know it sounds like a platitude. I really don't mean it to, but just know that you're not alone. There is so much out there. I know it can be overwhelming to try to navigate it and figure it out, but that's why talking about the diet, because you know, as soon as you say like, hey, I'm dealing with this, oh my God, you know what? I just met someone the other day, blah, 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 connection.
Yeah. Yes.
If you're keeping it all in here and down here because I don't want anyone to know, right? Then you are going to feel more isolated. But man, if you scream it from the hilltops and say, listen, this is what I'm dealing with, I'm telling you, Amy, people come running. They do. They do. They may not be
like
there
me
all
and
the time,
you.
every single,
And you.
Yeah.
I said, it's people like me and you, and we're like, we will hug you.
Right.
We will support
Cry
you.
with you.
Yeah. And we'll get you
Right. I'll get you connected.
Other resources that you need to help you navigate this.
Right.
Because I agree with you that if you just ask, you will find those people.
Yeah. Right.
So that's
you will.
super.
Yeah. People want to help, and your family wants to help, and we don't all have the same families or the same work environments, but I think there's enough out there that you can piecemeal it together, you know. And you know, if anyone ever, I don't know how people get this information, Amy, but you know, if anyone out there listening wants to get on my email list, like for the virtual lectures, because you know, all I do is just send the link out. I mean, you could be living overseas and still log on to some of these educational lectures. Happy to put those people in my database. Or if you're local and listening and you want support group information, please. Again, I don't know how they get our information, but please
we're going to put it in the podcast show notes. You shared so many
show notes.
Yeah, you shared so many amazing tips, and I think we're just going to summarize all of this, like even like Teepa Snow and the people you mentioned. We'll put links to all of that in the show notes, and then that way, even if they want to sign up for your virtual events, we'll give them the link to do that.
Yeah, and if they're local, they can come to my in-person events too.
Which I strongly encourage you to do, because Anne you're special. I'm telling you, you've got this gift and you've got an immense amount of wisdom. But more importantly, you have such a good heart. And I'm just watching the way that you are, you know, communicate about this and the passion that you have. You clearly are doing this for the right reasons and want to make a difference. So I highly recommend that people reach out to you as a resource. And I'm just grateful that you shared what you did with us today.
Grateful that you asked me, and I will come back anytime. I love doing this stuff.
Girl, it's going to happen. So you just be ready.
The gauntlet has been laid.
It has been laid. Because I'm like, we have so much that we can talk about.
I know. Gosh.
Yeah, I think communication is a big one. So we're going to probably focus on that next.
Let me know. We can put it together for sure.
That sounds so great. Well, I'm thankful, and we will get everything that you shared is going to go in the show notes.
Awesome.
And you will see our sweet Anne Farley again. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Amy. Bye, everyone. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it so much.
That's a wrap for today's episode of The Care Table. Thank you so much for joining me. If you found this information helpful, would you like, subscribe, write a review, or share this episode with someone that you feel could benefit from hearing this information? I'd sure appreciate it. If you learned of anything during this podcast as far as books, resources, or products that you might think are helpful, be sure to check out the podcast show notes for links to access that information. A friendly reminder that this is not medical or legal advice. This is just information. Consult a professional for your own personal situation. I ask that God would bless you with the wisdom, the courage, and the strength that you need as you're navigating this caregiving journey. And I want to remind you, you are not alone. I appreciate you joining us today. And until next time, stay strong, and I hope to see you at the care table.